Okay, good evening, everyone. As promised, a little Facebook Live here, and let me mute this for you so we don't have too much. Thank you. Craig and I are going to talk a little bit about what we just had on Jet TV, which, of course, was our winter weather show. So, welcome, Craig.
Hi there, Tom. How are you? I hope you can hear me well. I know we've had some audio issues.
There's a little bit of a delay. So what I'm going to do is put up your comments, and I'm sure Craig can see your comments too.
I don't know if I can.
Even if you can't, I will address any questions. So hello to Jessica, hello Carla, and hello Thomas Carlucci, saying how's everybody doing tonight? Well, it's all about the show, and we just had our winter weather special on Jet TV. It was also launched on Jet Foxshire Erie. So we thought we would, if you have watched it, if you had any questions, we could talk a little winter weather for you. Now, if you haven't watched it, this is just a regular old weather chat, right, Craig?
That's right. That's right.
So I'll say a few more hellos, and you guys decide if you got any questions for me. Now, if you didn't see the show, we can show you some stuff, no doubt about it, from what we were looking at, and also give you a little weather update too, because it's an interesting forecast. So hello to Cole, to Jim C., Jared, Paul Thomas, Fawn Rose in Northeast, Janie from Warren, Tara, Ashley Carolyn, Linda from Kane. Good to have Kane here. And they're saying hi to you too, Craig. So what do you guys want to do with this? You want to fire some questions, or do you want us to just talk winter weather? And Joe Schneider is in.
Okay. I know we're going to have a delay. I cannot see the comments, so if there's anything that people want to know specifically, you're going to have to read them to me, and we apologize about the delay. Actually thinking, Tom, some inside baseball, if you want to call me on the cell phone and then plug your IFB into the cell phone, it might eliminate the delay a little bit. Just thinking off the top of my head, if you want to try that.
Okay, great idea. And Joe, we're going to get to your question in just a minute. I got to get a piece of equipment here, and then we'll fire away. And I appreciate Jessica here. I want more snow. Is it coming? And we will answer that too. So hang on. Got to get a piece of equipment here so we can try to knock down this delay. Just stay with us and talk amongst yourselves.
Well, I'll take over for a little bit while Tom's getting his stuff ready. So we hope if you watched the show, you enjoyed it. It was fun to do. We do this every year. And obviously, Tom, myself, and Tom DeVecchio, we put a lot of work into it. We do a lot of research because, well, that's what we do. We're a bunch of weather geeks. So we like crunching numbers and stuff like that. And keep in mind what we did tonight in terms of the winter, quote unquote, forecast. Remember, we're forecasting 3 months in advance, 4 months in advance. So like Tom said in his piece, it's a crapshoot. So we gave it our best guess. It's more of an idea. And there's Tom right now. So let's see if this works. It's more of an idea of what the winter will be like. I wouldn't call it a forecast per se, but we gave it our best shot. So can you hear me, TA, in your phone?
I got you.
All
it's
right.
Much better.
Okay, perfect. So that delay's gone. Good. Glad we figured that
out. All right.
On
Good
the
job.
fly.
Okay. Joe's question here, do we see any chance of a mild winter? Now, I got to ask you, Joe, did you see the show? We have the answers right here as you look at one of the non-mild winters. I believe this was 2013, 2014, when Erie had about 138 inches of snow. But what we were talking about when we were when I was giving the forecast was about a La Nina. And you hear a lot about El Nino and La Nina. And so I'll give you a little bit of that, and then I'll give you a little bit of what we're thinking that translates into for us here in northwestern Pennsylvania. La Nina is all about the cooling of the Pacific Ocean. So what it does when you get to North America, provides a lot of cool in the northwest and a lot of warm in the southeast. And as far as our area, we're just kind of in the middle. We're kind of closer to the warm. And the other thing on the precipitation side, it usually produces wetter than normal weather. So it's a really hard sell here because what you got going there is the cold air, the coldest of the air, just a little bit away, but the precipitation here. So is it cold enough for snow, or is it warmer with rain? And that's the dilemma we faced. So what we found as we crunched the numbers, and again, we're looking at past La Nina years, and this is how crazy it is. If you look at the stats here, I've got 2 La Nina winters on top that were very cold and snowy. One not so long ago, 2017, 2018, and then 95, 96. You can see there that Erie had the most snow in that fateful year. And I put the big number up. I didn't use the adjustment from the Christmas storm. So those top 2 years that you're seeing over here are cold and snowy La Ninas. Now, we can also use last year as a La Nina example, and it was only 64 inches of snow. And 2011, 2012 was even less. So this kind of in the gap here, rock in the hard place, Erie kind of go either way, could go high precipitation or less, could go snow or more rain, is the dilemma that we're facing here. So I hope I'm helping you out here. Craig, you want to chime in on that at all?
Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you.
All right, great. I'm actually gonna go look for a piece of equipment here myself, but yeah, I can chime in on that. La Nina is it's like you said in your piece, it's a crapshoot. It could go either way, and I think you have evidence of that right there, showing on that graphic. I mean, look at 2017, 2018, 198, and then you just go back to last year in a La Nina winter, and we only had 64 inches. So that's what I was kind of driving home earlier while you were getting your IFB there. And I'm sorry for the inside baseball terms, but basically, because it can go either way, I was trying to portray that it's not exactly a forecast in the normal sense. It's not like a day-to-day forecast that we do. It's kind of an idea or trend that we look for, and so it's going to be interesting to see what this year's La Nina will do.
So we hope we're helping answer your question, Joe. And I think a lot of you probably have the same question. So I'm going to skip ahead a little bit, Craig, if you've got to go get a piece of equipment there. Yeah, it is Craig and me for all of you that ask, and we're trying to break down this winter. Okay, so what I'm going to do is do what I just did in the show. And if you didn't see the show, this is new. And Jane Ross, thank you, former teacher, for your support, and all of you that are on here. So in any event, this is what we broke down here. Okay, now give me a second and I'll show you how I went month by month here. All right, so not using November, because why? We're already in November. What I do think is going to happen is we're going to get a cold December, and you can see signs of that already in November. We're already talking about a hit pre-Thanksgiving Monday into Tuesday here, where everybody, including Erie, can get snow. So Jen Forever Young, that should make you happy and all the other snow freaks out there. For the month itself, I'm saying, temperatures about 2 to 4 degrees colder than normal, and snowfall anywhere between 25 and 50 inches, and I'll say 35 inches for Erie, which would be 6 above normal. We put a big range on there, basically because you've got a big range in climate here, right? You got the lake shore to the snow belt. So that's kind of the winter thing that we were looking at for the first month of winter. Now in January, I think we'll still have near average temperatures, not as cold. I think the snowfall a little bit below normal, but you're still seeing pretty good numbers there. All right. So that's the outlook for January. And I'll define what's normal for the whole region with a big map once I get through these next couple. Of course, February is a winter month. I think it warms up a little bit. And I think our snowfall still near average, depending on whether the lake freezes or not. So that's the outlook through that area. Now, I include March as a winter month because, it still snows in March. And I think temperatures are near normal. And I think we got like February, 15 to 25 across the board. So if you just look at, let's just say, what is average, okay? And then I'll put the numbers to it. And then you can get the full idea, right? So you've got Erie, Ashtabula, the lakeshore up here. You got the snow belt in the middle, and then you got Meadville and Warren here. So, and I know you guys are coming from all over. So average winter snowfalls, okay, that's what we want to tackle first. The numbers have changed. They've actually gone up in the last climate cycle. The average winter snowfall for the city of Erie used to be 101. Now it's 104. So if you're in these cities, this is your average snowfall for an entire winter. Now, if you're in the snow belt, which is basically defined from Interstate 90 south to about Sagertown, up across northwestern Warren County, and into ski country, New York, you get on average a lot more. All right. So that sets the stage. That's what a normal or average winter should have. Let me get past this. I don't want to get too much into charts here. Hang on. All right. Let me see if I can make this work. All right. Hang on. Help is on the way, I believe. All right. There you go. So this is the forecast that I came up with. All right. It's a little below average, like the past few winters, snowfall wise. I talked about the temperatures. They're, sometimes a little above, sometimes near, and in December, I think is going to be cold. So these are the snowfall amounts that we put in the forecast. So, of course, only time will tell if this is an accurate forecast. But all these snowfall amounts are less than normal. Okay. So that's the winter forecast in a nutshell. And, I'm going to sift through the comments, Craig, if you want to pick it up from here.
Yeah. And so hopefully y'all can hear, and our little experiment here is going well. I think one of the most important things for a La Nina winter is really trying to match up the cold air and the precipitation. La Ninas are a very erratic winter because you can get major temperature swings. So if the cold air and the precipitation doesn't match up, you don't really get much. So it could be a situation where we get a lot of what's called western runners, where these storms track to the west of us. And anytime a storm goes to the west of us, we can't help but get milder air up over top of us. We saw that today with low pressure lifting up through the Great Lakes. If that scenario happens in January or February, we're going to get a push of milder air. So it might be one of those winters, Tom, where we get a lot of mix over to rain and then back to the lake effect stuff on the back side of it as the storms move up into the southern provinces of Canada. So it's going to be interesting to see how that matches up, how the temperature and the precipitation match up. I mean, if we're, going to get a push of warmer air, we're definitely talking about mix over to rain and then back to snow situations, as opposed to just pure snow. But it all really depends on how well we can match those two features up, the precipitation and the cold air. And sometimes in a La Nina weather pattern, that's a little tricky.
Yeah, and that's true. And the other thing you put into the factor here, folks, is the lake. And one thing we also looked at is how warm the summer and fall have been. Second warmest October ever. And, if the lake is warmer to start, it takes it longer to cool down. And open lake, more potential for snow and heavier snow if you get good cold intrusions and good cold penetration down from Canada over that warmer lake. So that's another thing that factors into it. And, as Lori was saying, tough call. It is. I mean, we're between a rock and a hard place in La Nina forecasting, and then you've got the local climate to factor in. So good stuff there. I'm looking for any more comments. and questions. We thank you so much for being here and for putting your feelings in here. Laura, I like yours. It still snows in April. Spring starts June 1st. Yeah, depending on where you are. Because, when you talk about this climate, it's a shorter growing season right here. Why do they grow grapes along the lake? I'll tell you why. Because the last killing frost in the spring is earlier, and the first killing frost in the fall is later. So you get a longer growing season up here. And you guys spring starts in June. When you're in the middle of this stuff, it's short, Your tomatoes you put in June or the 4th of July, and you hope you get some more mature tomatoes by Labor Day. So all that stuff, that's local stuff that factors into all of this.
Correct. Very, very true. So in case people are wondering where DeVecchio is, we would have invited him, but he's probably sleeping. But what'd you think of his piece on the Farmer's Almanac? And how many people read the Farmer's Almanac and just think it's correct all the time?
We'll wait for your answers. Type away. Because if you didn't see it, DeVec did an excellent piece. Now, it's going to be rebroadcast on TV tomorrow night on Fox 66 at 7 p.m. if you like the big screen. And they're throwing it on our website, too, so you can watch it there.
Yeah.
And, people talk about the Farmer's Almanac. Before you throw the comments in here, and keep throwing your comments, and Lynn Blank, I like yours. It's entertainment, pure and simple. Just think about how popular the Farmer's Almanac has been since it was conceived, like back in Ben Franklin's day. Right. I think they got the first forecast right, and ever since then, it's been like gospel. So now just imagine you own a business, and I've never seen any business this happen to like it does the Farmer's Almanac. Say you sell pizza, okay? And, you're doing great. You're selling a lot of pizza. And then all of a sudden the health department comes in and, they see some rats in your kitchen. What happens to your pizza sales? Okay. You're going to have problems. These guys have the King Midas touch. I don't know whether it was because their first forecast worked out so well, but you never hear bad stuff about the Almanac. I mean, Craig and I wish we had press like that because we hear about all our misses. Now think about it. Go to the national news stories. They'll talk about some blizzard in North Dakota. And sometimes at the end of them, they'll say, hey, and the Farmer's Almanac called that. I mean, I can't get that kind of PR. Craig and I can't. But it's just an interesting way that business has turned out. But there's a lot of other things besides weather. So what do we got here? Keep going,
DeVecchio was much more diplomatic, as he always is. He's like, I'm not going to bash the Farmer's Almanac. Well, I am. Why? What's the science behind it? They're very general. And I think that was really important part of what Tom was discussing. They're forecasting an area that's basically from Syracuse, New York to Indianapolis, Indiana, and Chicago. And if they say January 4th through the 9th, rain over to snow, if that happens anywhere in that forecast area, they can say, hey, we were right.
Right. And Patty's got a great comment, and she just dovetails with what Craig said. The bigger the area, the more accurate. And there's all kinds of neat things in the Farmer's Almanac. I mean, everything from mood phases to growing trips. That's awesome.
That's all good stuff.
So thank you, Judy. That's very kind of you. I do the long range, and I feel for the Farmer's Almanac because this is no easy task. And I think who was saying just a minute ago, I think it was Robert Rame, how close were you to last year's predictions? You know how close I was? I was 20 inches off. Okay.
It's not bad.
I don't think that's
not bad.
That's not nailing it, but it's not bad. Okay. That's how tough this thing is. And hey, all you know is, what you can only work with what you're given, and a little bit of an experience and a little bit of intuition. So,
hey, Tom, someone asked where I was from, and the answer would be Central New York. So I am a lake effect boy through and through. Grew up in Central New York near the Utica area. We used to get Lake Ontario lake effect snow all the time. So this is nothing new for me.
And I thank Steve Oleski, very astute comment here. If the lake freezes early enough, snow becomes minimal. Yes, it gets cut down, but that's lake effect snow. Now, lake effect snow comprises 70% of the snow we get here in Erie, PA, but there's another term, real fancy one, called synoptic snow.
Mm-hmm.
And that's snow from a low or a front, like the rest of the country gets snow from. So you can also get synoptic snow even if your lake freezes over. But what I was saying before, we'll see how the warmest or second warmest October on record factors in with, does the lake ever freeze completely over? And it didn't last year in a La Nina year. So it's a crapshoot, right? Open lake, better chance of snow. But if it's too warm, it'll be rain, not snow.
Yeah.
This is what we're up against.
Yeah, and even even in the cases where the lake does freeze over, all you need is a little section of it to be unfrozen, and it can still produce some sort of response, whether it's flurries or snow showers or clouds or something like that. So, in order to really shut all the lake effect snow down, you need that lake completely frozen over.
And another thing here, one of my students is on here, and he is Skywarn trained, and if you know what that means, he knows weather, and he's taken my class. Joe, I want to recognize you, and thanks for the plug there. I'll see you in class tomorrow. We're talking hurricanes, much warmer, severe weather in our class, and Craig even threatened to stop by and say a few words someday.
I did.
Yeah, come on down to Barron. We'll continue the discussion. Let's see. Typical great comment. And no, we don't control this. The superintendents usually don't call us. The kids and the parents and the teachers call us,
Right.
but we don't make those calls.
Mhm.
So just keep that in mind. Joe Snyder. Thank you, Joe. There you go. His woolly. How are your woolly bears out there? Maybe we should just pose that question, because I'm sure different areas have different woolly bears, right? Joe says they have a larger black center, so that would mean a cold middle winter. So
now, see, I've seen the opposite, and I don't live that far from Joe. Okay, I've seen a lot of brown in the middle, and then at the end, at the head and the tail, it's black. So that's interesting.
And we appreciate the folklore, because Red Sky at Night, Sailor's Delight. There's a lot of truth to that. Okay, and so thank you, Papa Joe, for using nature to give us some idea of the weather. That is very interesting. No tree frogs singing. We did have peepers, but not as much as usual. Pines have a lot of pine cones. The woolly bears are confused. See, now that's good stuff, because this weather thing will never be figured out, and we'll never be able to control it too. But that's something Craig, Tom, and I are strong on. We won't go down that road on this one. They've been trying to do that for years and unsuccessfully.
Yeah, not happening. Still got me there, Tom?
Yeah. I'm just having a little audio problem with my IFB, but now I can hear you, which is good.
Okay, good.
And John talking about John, who takes great pictures from Warren, 15 robins. Now, you know that robins stay all winter.
Right.
So the robin thing isn't really the first sign of spring.
Mm-hmm.
So some robins are more hardy than others, I guess. That's just a guess. Kenny says 50-50 color on the caterpillar.
Yeah, that makes sense. I've seen, like I said, a few woolly bears with a lot of brown in the center. So, I guess it varies from place to place.
And Sue, thanks for your comments from down in Pymatoonie. All right. So everybody's got a different take on this thing. And if you put out a lot of Christmas lights, Jane Ross, I would love to do a weather in the neighborhood in the winter. If you put out about like 30,000 lights, that'd be cool. I have done that before. And if you have a hot tub, it's even better. I've done that before too. Just getting off track here. Um,
Tom and his
anyway,
hot tub.
yeah, you've seen that.
Yep.
What else? What else? What else do you guys? Deep thoughts. Give us to them. Give them to us, or not so deep.
I'll tell you what. What'd y'all think of the air quality story? I thought that was pretty interesting to cover. What about you, Tom?
No, but I mean, we had two bag up jobs by you and DeVecchio because we've never done Farmer's Almanac. And air quality, as Craig was talking about, is something you worry about with pollution in the winter, or excuse me, in the summer. You don't think about it in the winter, but it does have an influence. In fact, let's just split the difference and call it fall. One of the biggest smog disasters ever occurred in Pennsylvania,
Yeah.
in Denora, in the
Yep,
fall,
Denora.
right around Halloween in 1948. No, Craig and I were not there. DeVecchio was, but we weren't. It's historic. Denora, Pennsylvania, and Craig told you about the aversion, and I know Grandma liked his little drawing board there.
Oh,
But
I know,
when
that
the
was
temperature
horrible.
gets
I am not
warmer,
an
it
artist.
was a great job. With height, you can trap pollutants. So for 5 days, pollutants were trapped in Denora, Pennsylvania, a mill town, and it produced one of the biggest smog disasters in the United States. You know, they were playing football there, the high school football, and they couldn't see across the bleachers. That's how thick the smog was. 21 people died, and a lot of them were hospitalized. And that kind of woke up, you know, the powers that be that, hey, maybe we should, you know, not pump so much of that into our atmosphere. But that is fall air quality disaster headed towards winter. And it's a very interesting story. Weather Channel did one of their When Weather Changed history about it. And it's completely fascinating and very well related to weather. So this talk that Craig did on air quality, very informative.
Yeah, well, and I'm the reason I've got my phone here is because I'm also reading the comments, and this is how Tom can hear me. So you can still hear me, right, TA?
Yeah, I can hear you.
So one of the most interesting things I thought that I learned when I was talking to Nick, who is the chief of air quality division based out of Harrisburg, you know, I've always heard that winter air quality is actually worse than it is in the summer. But what I learned was that's not really the case here in Erie, Pennsylvania. As a matter of fact, we have some of the best air quality anywhere in the United States. Now, the reason I decided to explore air quality in the winter is because a lot of people heat their homes with wood stoves. And that fine particulate matter is what we watch for in the winter. That's the stuff that can get past all your nasal passages, the mucus in your lungs, not to be gross, but all that natural defense that you have, that stuff can get past you in the winter. And with an inversion, which means the temperature increases as you go up with height, which is opposite of what it normally does, it tends to trap that fine particulate matter here at the surface in the lower part of the troposphere where we live. And that's why in some cases, not in all cases, but in some cases, air quality can actually be a little bit worse in the wintertime versus the summer. But really, in the long run, in the big picture, it's a small blip because we have such great air quality here. So that's exciting, right? When you're out there enjoying everything that winter has to offer, you can take comfort that you're breathing in some really fresh air right here in Northwest Pennsylvania.
Yeah, and for those of us who have been around a few years, you can really tell the difference because, you know, I grew up out east, and some of you may be from the West Coast, and it seems like the East and the West Coast, with all the industry, pump all kinds of gross, smelly stuff into the air, and it turns it colors. And on a different note, my father lives in New York City, and one of his famous lines was, and still is, "I don't trust air I can't see." Okay, now that's a great bit of humor, but
Yeah.
that's the way it was growing up.
Right.
And you know, like Craig said, improvements were made. You know, they figured out with the Denora's disaster and the London fog disaster, London smog disaster. I mean, I'm talking overcoats in winter or some kind of Freudian slip there. Yeah, it woke up not only the United States, but the United Kingdom and the world to the fact that, yeah, we might want to clean this up a little bit.
Yeah, and they've done a really good job. They've done a really good job over the past 25, 30 years. I mean, the air quality has improved so vastly here. And it's the other interesting thing is, when you're like driving by like a bakery or a factory, and they're making the dough and the bread, and you drive by it and you get that just fantastic smell. It makes your mouth water and you're like, oh, that smells so good. That's actually pollution. So just a little food for thought for you there. No pun intended.
Good stuff. Yeah, and I see Dave Sanders. Dave, just repost your question because I missed it and I might not be able to go all the way back. So we'll hang. Just repost your question. And yeah, and here's another great one. Robert Rain, this is very true. You can still get lake effect with a frozen lake. You just don't get as much because the friction that the ice produces and this, little I-90 ridge right in there allows the air to lift. So if you can lift air, you can make clouds and precip. Now with the open waters, it's the temperature difference that makes the air go up. So just, here's an everyday example, crude as it is. All right. Say you draw a tub of hot bath water and, you want to take a warm bath. So you really turn up the hot cycle. What do you do first? Right. You stick your foot out over that hot water. And if it's really hot or you touch it and it's too hot, your foot goes up. Well, that's how cold Canadian air reacts over a warm water. It creates lift. And anytime you got good lifting, you can form clouds and then you can form snow. So that's the real true lake effect process. And I think as Lori was saying earlier, then it all depends on what we call the fetch, the wind direction over the lake. So you build it, out here with deep, warm water, and then you drag that air over it. So if the winds are westerly, it generally goes over northeastern Erie County into ski country in New York. If the winds are northwesterly, it generally drives into the snow belt. Okay, and that's why they get more. And if they're southwesterly, the snow bands go up to Buffalo. So it's not only brewing deep moisture, it's also determining where it's going to go by the wind direction. So little caveat there.
Yeah. Still having audio issues there, bud?
Yeah, still trying. Now I got you. Okay. Nothing but the best, Clark. And I see Jen Forever Young has made a prediction. She says her almanac is going for 123 point something inches of snow. I can't find it here, but hey, she could be she could be onto something because you do have cold and snowy La Nina winters.
Hey, maybe next year what we can do is actually get these guys involved with the show. Like have them send their winter weather predictions, and then maybe we could give something away to them, like a snowblower. And I'm really putting the station on blast here. I'm sure if they're watching, they're going, no, don't promise that. We're not promising it, but that might be something to look at next year.
Yeah, great idea. Yeah. If the boss is listening, she's probably in the building.
Yeah.
So if you hear somebody come in here really fast, come up behind me, blonde hair, and she's got a wicked gait, you'll hear her coming. We just offered something. Maybe we shouldn't have right off the bat without consulting.
Did you see that David reposted his question there, TA?
Yeah, let's put it up here. Okay. Craig, why don't you take this one?
Okay. So David asks, it's long. Okay, that's the question. How far in advance with the use of computer models can you tell with some sort of degree of accuracy when a strong cold air mass will be affecting our area, lake effect snow? Are we talking days, weeks? So here's kind of the general rule of thumb when it comes to using computer modeling uh, uh, when you're forecasting weather. Now, this might be a long-winded answer, so I'll do my best to keep it short and sweet. But you got to remember, as you project out with the computer models, the errors increase, right? So when we're talking 5 to 7 days out, what we're really looking for is something called pattern recognition. And we look out 5 to 7 days and we say, okay, uh, is this pattern favorable for winter weather? Is it favorable for lake effect snow? And the problem is with 5 to 7 days out is they're trends. They're nothing more than that. They never will be anything more than that. So we kind of look for a trend. And if the trend is favoring winter weather, we'll keep an eye on it. And then as we get closer to the forecast, so say days 4 to 6, then we start kind of paying attention a little bit more. And if the computer models are still consistent with the pattern favoring snow, then we start to kind of pay attention and hone in a little bit more on exact placement, which is always hard to do when you're talking lake effect. And then once you get into days, 2, 3, and 4, that's when we're starting to think about the finer details of the forecast, like how much, where, timing. So in terms of your question there, with the use of computer models, how long in advance, we can at least get an idea 7 to 10 days out. But I like to call that la la land, because the first thing that I was taught in meteorology school is there are no guarantees in weather. So just because a computer model 7 to 10 days out is saying, hey, it's looking promising for a snowstorm or whatever, doesn't mean it's going to happen. And that's why we harp all the time on these Facebook meteorologists that post 2-week forecasts in advance, because they're going to change, and it's the most pointless thing to do. And I'll tell you what makes a good meteorologist is knowing when to walk away from the computer models and use everything that you've learned, everything that they smashed into your brain in college, because sometimes the computer models, quite frankly, suck. So, we can get an idea 7 to 10 days out, but it's just a trend, and we have to see if that trend continues. So I hope that kind of answers your question, David.
And I want to thank Sean, because he's over in London town, and we were talking about frozen lake, and he was talking about the River Thames, of course, in England, freezing over. And, that's very interesting. It's also, now we've had a few mild winters in a row. So I know the big ones in the last 10 years were 13-14 and 14-15, and then 17-18. Those were big, cold, snowy winters. So, then you get mild ones in between. And that's what we're faced with. And that's why what Craig was saying with computer models, remember, computer models are using math to figure out all those squiggly lines on a weather map. Math is an exact science. Meteorology is a very inexact science. So at some point, if you introduce any margin of error, it just gets amplified over time. Now, they're better than they used to be, but they're right. Guidance, not gospel. A little bit of, common sense and what you've learned and been burned by is a good forecasting method as well. And here's one from our weather watchers, Carol and Rick, down in Crossingville. Heavy mass crop should be heavy winter weather, so the old timers maintain. We can only hope.
Hey, Tom, I actually think if you go into my vault there on the computer and into my Craig's stuff folder there at the top, and you scroll down, I think there might actually be a winter like predicting winter forecast or winter forecasting way down at the bottom. It's a graphic I made that might help clear up Dave's question too.
Okay, hang on, buddy. Is that the Craig folder?
Yep.
Okay, hang on. We will try to do this. Hang on, kids. We might change a graphic here, but bear with us.
Yeah, it might be. I think it's winter forecasting. It's called. So down in the W's, obviously, and there should be a graphic there, and it lists the days. That might be a good
Okay.
visual. I don't know if it's not there. Don't worry about it, but I think it's there.
We'll give it a quick shot here. We're working. Now, Craig's stuff is in the storyboards.
Yeah.
Okay.
Under frames. No, frames. Under frames.
Okay, we got frames and
Craig's stuff at the top, and then scroll all the way down. See if there's something in there that says winter forecasting.
okay. Hang on. I don't see Craig's stuff up at the top here. Favorites, frames. All right. Craig Weather Academy. You got all kinds of stuff, buddy.
Oh, go back, and then under frames, not storyboards, the tab right next to it, frames.
Yeah, got it.
There's Craig's stuff folder.
Somewhere in this.
Probably down in the W's. See if it says like winter weather forecasting or something like that.
Okay, I'm looking. What is July's wind advice? Winter impact?
No.
Winter forecasting. We got it. So
try that.
We'll throw that up in here. We'll throw it right next to our 7-day. Okay, there you go, buddy.
That's exactly what I was looking for.
Hopefully everybody can see it.
So that's a good rule of thumb about how we forecast 7 to 10 days in advance. Right there. That's kind of the breakdown of what we do.
So, we're looking, just to put some teeth into this and make it more literal for what's going on up to the moment. Right now, we have a 7-day forecast, and we'll show it to you. And of course, you saw the 5 to 7 days there. Now, if you look at the 7-day forecast, we got a snow event here. All right. And we've put out accumulations for this. This is like Thursday night and Friday. That's within a 1 to 3 day window. Now you talk about a 5 to 7 day window. We have another one here. And this one should be a little bit heftier. So we have long range models. And I know Thomas Carlucci was talking about GFS and Euro, and any of you weather geeks know what that is. Know those two as the long range models. And then we got a bunch of shorter ones that would cover this period. So we've gone out with some accumulations. If you watched the shows, you saw them tonight for tomorrow night and Friday. But this is further out, and this looks colder. So we are, we're tracking trends. We're not doing, how much snow and what's the timing of the snow, like Craig was talking about. So two great examples on our 7-day forecast about how you look at stuff.
Right. Right.
And even a simple temperature forecast like today, that was all gut and feel. All right. Because if we looked at the models, they were forecasting 61 and 62 for a high in Erie today. All right. And we know with a strong southerly wind and a little bit of sunshine, that's going to be underdone.
So blow it right out of the water.
Here was 67, and it's just a matter about like how much guts do you have, really? I only went 64. I should have gone 66, 67.
Yeah,
but at least I'm on the right side of things.
You know what?
And that's a good.
You know what? That's all that matters. You had a gut instinct, and you were right. You may not have hit it exactly, but you knew what you were doing.
I think Jen Forever Young was sharing one of her deep thoughts. Instinct is impossible with computers. And that's absolutely right, at least in our generation. I don't know if they'll ever create that. But yeah, I mean, you've got to combine human trial and error and what you've seen over the years. And that's why DeVecchio is so great, because he's lived here all his life.
Right.
And he's taught both of us. I mean, he taught me like 30 years ago. And sometimes I still don't learn. But Craig's lived in lake effect country, but everything is different. Erie's different than Buffalo. Buffalo's different than Syracuse. Syracuse is different than Cleveland, and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that's the best part about working with these two is they bring years of experience. I mean, I'm no spring chicken at doing this either. I've been forecasting weather for 12, 14 years now, all in lake effect country. But it doesn't matter because you've heard Tom say it. That lake, which is right outside that window for me, humbles us every year.
Yes.
We're not going to get the forecast right 100% of the time. We're just not. That's just the way it's going to be. So we keep trying.
Right. All right. Okay. David says, is the woolly worm theory similar to Farmer's Almanac? David from Skywarn, good to have you here.
Okay. So the question is the woolly worm theory similar to the Farmer's Almanac? I guess it's a little bit different because the Farmer's Almanac claims to be based off of science. And I'm not sure where exactly the woolly worm theory came from. Tom, you may know. But basically, the premise of that one is if you see more brown, it's a milder winter. If you see more black, it's a colder winter. Again, these are just this is just folklore, which there might be some credence to it, but the bottom line for me, it's an insect. So,
right. And what was funny? You talk about being around for a while. At one point, I was talking about woolly worms on the air. And I must have joked around too much because somebody actually sent me, and they used colored pencils, different, color shadings and patterns of woolly worms. And the first line that in this course is handwritten, sent in the postal mail: don't make fun of woolly worms. They are always right. So, true story, literally, and that happened. I probably have it in my file cabinet over there. So, people are very adherent and not avoidant of the woolly worms because they want to see more. They and fine, God bless them, But we always see different patterns. So which is right, I guess.
Hey, Ed has a great question. Why don't you pop his up there, Tom? Because I can't. It's Ed Lindstrom.
Okay. Let me see if I can find. Okay, got it right here. Why don't you go with that one, Craig?
Okie doke. Something that I noticed is the real wet snow tends to be further inland, like this last storm. When we get in colder weather, the heavy snow tends to be more in the middle part of the county. That has to do with geography, all right? Because remember, we were talking about friction, right, earlier. What friction is basically when the wind blows, you got to think of the lake as a flat surface, right? So when the wind blows over the lake, there's nothing to slow it down. It's a frictionless surface. Well, what happens when that wind crashes into the land? It encounters friction. It encounters hills. It encounters buildings. It encounters trees, right? And as you go up from the lake plain, the elevation increases up the I-90 ridge and then down into the lake belts of southern Erie County. Well, with that extra lift, that extra elevation, it actually acts like a ramp. So you have the wind coming across the lake, screaming across the lake, and then it hits that elevation and it's actually forced up even more. And when that happens, that extra lift causes the snow to come down heavy. Now, in terms of, we call it orographic lift. Now, in terms of wet snow versus dry snow, it just really depends on the temperature. It all comes down to the temperature of the atmosphere as you go up and what it's doing here at the surface. So, it's kind of complicated to explain, but basically an average snow to liquid ratio is kind of a starting point for us is 10 to 1, which means 10 inches of snow melted down will equal 1 inch of liquid. And that will change. The higher the ratio, the drier the snow. So like a 15-to-1 is a much more powdery snow. The lower the ratio, like say 8-to-1 is a heavy, wetter snow. And it just depends on the temperature profile up through the atmosphere. And why it is more intense in the snow belts has to do everything with that extra lift, that extra oomph, so to speak. Once that air hits the I-90 ridge and it goes up from the lake plain, that adds that extra lift in the air, which makes it snow harder. Great question, Ed.
Good stuff. Thank you. Thank you so much. Just looking to see if you guys have anything else that you might want to add or have us answer. We got predictions. Laura has predictions. She's going 135 to 145 for the Borough. You watch it be one of those cold La Nina winters, and my numbers will be grossly underestimated. Go deep or go home. I don't know.
Let's see. A lot of woolly bear questions. We answered that one. Let's see.
Okay, I know what you're talking about, Dave. I'll do this one and then we'll kind of wind it down here. But April 2nd, 3rd, 2005. Late season heavy snowfall. And the ratio, like Craig was talking about, it was probably 1 inch of rain to 6 inches of snow. It was so heavy and so wet. There was almost a bluish tinge to the snow. It had such a high water content. And the plow guys and girls hate that stuff. Because, I mean, they got to push harder. They got to expend more gas. And,
like cement.
It's a pain. And that storm, I think, I remember it was a rain to snow situation. I'll tell you one of my Walmart stories. Okay. I'm in Walmart when they used to be open in my favorite shopping time when I want to be a Walmart leader between midnight and 8. Okay. So I'm into Walmart and I'm buying stuff. And all of a sudden I look up, you know how they have those fluorescent lights all the way across, back and forth. Well, all of a sudden they started flickering. And then every other light went out. And so I'm taking my shopping cart and I'm flying towards the cashier because I don't want the whole electricity thing to go out. And I get in, I get through, pay for my goods and get out there. And then you got to push, through this sloppy, heavy, slippery, slushy, wet mess. And it was a fun time because right after that, I get called into work and there's electrical outages all over the place and accidents. And it's April, okay? 14 inches of snow, like Easter Sunday kind of thing. Some of you might remember that. It was a snowstorm to remember.
Hey, Tom, can you still hear me okay? Because Michael James, man, he's poking the bear with this one. I think you might want to take this one.
You want me to? Because I was here.
Oh, yeah. Go for it. Because I know you have strong feelings.
Yes. We did a little comedy routine about that.
Yeah.
So let Mike, I love you for this. Let me see what's going on here. I want to pull up a graphic because I have one. I think I have one. If I don't, then I'm just going to talk. But you're talking about the infamous Christmas snowstorm of 2017 when there was an adjustment made. I don't see it here. In any event, and I might change timelines just to try and find it. I don't know. That might not be worth it. But in any event, what I put here in this graphic that I did show you, that I did do on the show, was 2017, 2018. And I used 198 inches. Okay. That's what they measured at the airport. Now, the entities from eastern parts of the country that don't have lake effect snow had a committee formed. They included Cleveland. So there were 5 government entities, climate people, that weighed in on whether Erie could ever get that much snow, especially for the Christmas storm, because it was like 60 or 66 inches in 4 days. So they had to review it and have a powwow. So now where are these? Now there's like Asheville, North Carolina, and Massachusetts and Eastern New York State that are represent these climate places, and they all weighed in. Cleveland was the only one of the 5 that lived in lake effect country. So the vote was 4-1. All these Eastern guys against Cleveland. Cleveland supported us, that this 198 was too high for the winter. So they not only chopped like 15 inches off the Christmas storm, they chopped other stuff. And I don't accept it. That's a long-winded way of saying I think you don't miss a snowstorm by 15 inches. I just don't think you do. And DeVecchio also backed me up on this one because he remembers a storm, and some of you might remember. I think it was Christmas 1983. It was a tremendous Arctic outbreak across the eastern half of the country, and Christmas Eve they got a snowstorm. And back then, rear-wheel drive cars. He said he couldn't get up his hill to go to Christmas Mass, Christmas Eve night. It was just too, and they've never missed it. All right. So back then in 1983, he said there was a very narrow band. And this was the whole argument about the Christmas storm. How could that much snow fall in a very narrow band? Well, if you know Erie or you know lake effect, you could have like a 3 to 5 mile band of one area that just sat on an area and pummeled it, But
that's why I call it zip code snow. It's all
there.
zip code snow.
Yeah, there you go. I'll get off my soapbox.
Hey, Tom, you still got me? I'm going to answer this question here from John. Asking, does the lack of photosynthesis change the air quality in the winter? Great question. I would have to look into that. It might have something to do with it. But I think overall, the pollutants in the winter are more localized. They're caused locally, right? So they're not coming from somewhere like in the West, like when we had the wildfires over the summer and that smoke came down over us into our skies. The pollutants in the winter are much more localized. They're produced locally. And, the lack of photosynthesis, I'm not really sure. It might have something to do with it, but I'll have to look into that and get back to you. And then just one more from Thomas. At least your Erie doesn't name winter storms unlike a certain other network, that network being the Weather Channel. I will call them out. It's ridiculous. We don't name winter storms. There. Now you know.
Yeah, we don't name them. We leave that to the hurricane people. They have a very cool naming system. We're not coming up with one for winter.
No. So if nobody else has any questions, I think that should do it for me.
And that should do it for me, because I gotta get some shows together here. So we want to thank you all for being here and helping us out and watching our shows. Remember, if you didn't see it, tomorrow night on the big screen on Fox at 7, and they're throwing it on yourerie.com. You can probably go through the weather section and hopefully find it. And we'll just continue to pump it out there.
Yeah, it should be there under the weather section. Just the drop down weather tab. You should find it there.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, guys. Thanks a lot. And, we'll be on later tonight, and I'll do another Facebook Live. So if you want to talk more weather, we're here for you. And thanks, Craig, because this is really not his part of the day, but he's here. He's one of the hardest hardest working meteorologists.
Because I'm a huge
Erie.
nerd. I'm a huge
television.
geek.
He's a weather
Come
geek.
on.
All right.
It's easy to be here talking about weather.
We're going to say goodbye. And thanks a lot, guys. Have a good night. Stay safe. And we'll see you on Jet, Fox, your Erie, Facebook, Twitter, all that stuff. Thanks for your support. We appreciate you. Have a good night.
See ya.